Hello and welcome to episode 3 of a Big Knit podcast. My name is Chloe and I am a knitter based in Prince George, BC and the west coast of Canada, and this is a podcast or a vlog all about my knitting projects and my knitting plans and occasionally some sewing. I do have a sewing finished object to talk about today, but I think my plan is to do that at the very end. I am just going to get right into it with my finished objects. This is my first finished object. This is the Stick Season Sweater. Oh, it doesn't even fit in the whole frame. My Stick Season Sweater by Rebecca Clow from the Aoide. Show you all the nice details. So this is, I'm not going to lie, a total flop. And it's my own fault because I'm a silly goose. So we'll just get into it. So I knit this on 4mm needles. It is a size 4 and it is a gift for my boyfriend. Well, it was a gift for my boyfriend. The construction is you cast on along the top here, along the neckline, and then you increase out for the shoulders. You knit the back panel, and then on the front you pick up and knit stitches along the left and right shoulders, and then you connect in the front, knit the rest of the front panel, join under the arms, and knit the body. And then after that you pick up and knit the sleeves as well as the neckband. This sweater I knit in Camarose Llama Tweed. It's this really nice, kind of like a muted green tweed color, and I like it a lot. I think like the color is it's so nice. It's really thick. It's definitely more of an Aran weight yarn. This pattern is kind of more intended for a DK weight yarn, but the stitch gauge is 20 stitches, so I was like, I can get away with it. When I block my knits, when I'm done, I will soak it and I will wash it with eucalyptus, and then I will put it through a spin cycle on my washing machine, and which is like a rinse and spin cycle. This has never once done me dirty, but oh my gosh, it did me so dirty. It did me so dirty. I'm never gonna do it again. I am scarred forever. So, so this is supposed to be a size 4. My boyfriend tried it on pre-blocking and he was like, yep, fits pretty well. It just is maybe a tad short. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, this is llama. And in my brain, I'm like, llama reacts to blocking similarly to alpaca. So it's gonna grow a little. So that'll be fine, like it'll grow and I can block it out to the right dimensions. I block it, I soak it, I put it through the spin cycle and it comes out and I'm like, that doesn't look right. I shrunk it, so I don't know, when I do the spin cycle, I do it on tap. So not ice cold water, but not hot water. And so I don't know if it was just the type of wool, or if it was the temperature of the water, or if it was the agitation as it was getting spun through the washing machine. But it came out and I was like, that is looking a little small. And so I blocked it and I pinned it out to probably the max extent of what I could get it to. I kind of joked with my boyfriend. I was like, if the Olympic trampolinists need a new trampoline, this sweater right now is pinned and it's up for grabs. That's how tight it was. And I did get quite a lot around the chest, but unfortunately it doesn't fit him around the shoulders. So part of that is because it shrunk and I think I lost a bit of yoke depth. The other thing that I didn't consider when picking the size is that this pattern is graded for a women's size chart. which has, of course, if you think about it, a different chest circumference to shoulder proportion, right? So what I should have done was I should have measured him around the shoulders and picked a size based on the shoulder fit, and then just potentially like tapered more down the body. Instead, I picked the size based on his chest circumference, which is why I picked the size 4. But then it means that it's not wide enough across the shoulders, and there is nothing that I can do about that. I would have to rip out the entire sweater and knit it again, and I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do it. I don't have it in me. I also, pre-blocking, will often weave in all of my ends. The only ends that I didn't weave in were the ones across the bottom hem and the 2 arms. And that's just because I thought that everything was hunky-dory and that it was gonna fit him, and that if anything needed to be changed, it was gonna be the length. I was wrong, and I don't have it in me to undo a whole entire sweater's worth, because really the way that you would change the shoulder width is to start again. You have to start again, and I'm not gonna do it. So what I did was him and I picked out new yarn. So I'm gonna have to make him something different. I think I've showed him some patterns. He's picked one out, and it is a man-specific pattern, so graded to a male size chart, because I am scarred for life. I don't think I will ever again attempt to knit him a sweater from a female graded size chart, just because now I have a sweater that doesn't fit him, it doesn't fit me, I don't know who to give it to. And like, obviously I'm not gonna like throw it out or anything, because that would be insanely wasteful, and I spent hours and hours and hours making it, but I don't know what to do with it. Maybe my mom wants it. Mom, if you're watching, do you want it? So this is my stick season sweater. I have, trauma. I will say that, like, I do really like the features of the sweater, so I really enjoy this back, like a faux seam, and then it kind of carries down the front, and then also, how am I going to show you this? It carries down the sides also, and I think it's really nice. So I think in the future, I have had this sweater on my list of what I want to, of something I want to make for myself. And I thought, I was like, oh, it'd be so cute to like this fall make one, and then we'll be matching. I need some time. I need some time. So that won't happen right away, but I still want to make it, but it'll just be for me. I'm not gonna make it again for my boyfriend. So that's my stick season sweater. My next finished object is actually what I'm wearing, and I suppose maybe I should have started with this, but it is my Colette top by Sari Nordlund. I knit this in the size 6 on 3.75 millimeter needles, which is, I believe the recommended needle size is 3.5, so just like a little bit bigger. This is knit starting on the back panel, you knit to below the underarm, you pick up and knit the 2 fronts, join, continue knitting, and increase for the armholes, and then you knit the body. And then the pattern calls for finishing the body and then going and doing the finishing armhole and neckline details. I got tired of knitting this, and so I stopped kind of partway through the body, and I went and I did the neck hole and the armholes. I'll also, like, maybe I'll stand up a little so you can see. So I knit this quite cropped, and part of that is because I got tired of knitting it. I do like knitting cable patterns. I just think that the yarn that I knit this in was just so stiff, and it really, I think, like detracted from my enjoyment. But that's okay. I made it through. But it does mean that I made it quite cropped, because I was looking at the bottom and hang on, I'll show you. Because, oh, I know why. Because the next row here would have been an eyelet. And under no circumstances did I want to do another row of eyelets. So I was like, we're done. Gonna do the folded hem, and that's it. So the yarn that I used was Sandisgarn Lena, and I used 695 meters of it. So I can't remember exactly how many balls I had, but I just tapped in to the last ball that I had, but it means that now I have almost a full ball. I would say that, like, in terms of summer yarns, I've used a few. This is the first time I've used this one, and I found it to be like quite stiff. Oh, maybe not stiff, because like the result, like it's maybe more, okay, words, form sentences. The yarn itself is drapey, but there is absolutely no give. So I find that like the summer yarns that I have used have also had a little bit of wool or alpaca in them, which means that there's like a little bit more give, a little bit of elasticity, and this does not have that at all. So I found knitting the cables and the eyelets with it, along with the fact that it's quite a splitty yarn, was just not fun. There's no other way that I can say it. I didn't really like it. I do think, like, for a stockinette project, sure, I would use it again, but I'm never going to use this yarn again for a textured pattern. And I also found that, like, in terms of, like, I know summer yarns tend to be harder on your hands. This one is probably one of the hardest ones that I've worked on, and so by the end of it, my hands, I think, were quite stiff. And the only other thing that I think I would mention is that I think in my last podcast, I was worried about the fact that it was looking quite small, and I thought that the end tank top that I was going to get was going to have negative ease, but with blocking, it relaxed significantly. So you can kind of see here, like, I do have a little bit of positive ease, and it's pretty much bang on what the recommended size is. It fits the dimensions of the size that I knit, which is great. Even though I didn't really like knitting it, I love this tank top. I have been wearing it a lot. I haven't been, like, particularly careful with it. I have been, like, putting it through the washing machine, and I usually just air dry them. The only modification that I have made is the fact that the bottom hem called for ribbing. I didn't want to do that, so I did a folded hem. And part of the reason why I didn't want to do that was because I wanted it to kind of look more cohesive and match the armhole and the neck hole. And what Sari calls for on the finishings up here is double knitting, and there was no way I was going to do that. So I just did like a double folded finishing and then sewed it down, and I think it looks totally fine. Like, double knitting for me is more tedium than it's worth, I think. I say that as someone who's only double knit a button band, but I can't imagine that, like, doing a double knit armhole or neck hole really adds anything extra that a folded down collar doesn't give. So that's why I did it. But yeah, I've been wearing this so much. I love it, and I'm gonna continue to wear it until it literally falls apart. So my third and final finished object, I will also say that I have been knitting a lot. I don't think I'm normally gonna have 3 finished objects, but I do today. So my third and final finished object is the Middle Earth Adventure Sock by Claire Jackson. Her design handle is perfectly knotted on Instagram. And this was in between the time of filming my last podcast and filming this podcast. She put out a tester call for these socks, and I applied and was selected, and I knit the whole set. So this is a DK weight sock. I knit this on 3.5 millimeter needles, and I knit the size medium. And the yarn I used, I had purchased a long time ago a bunch of mini skeins from Pigment and Ply in their sock yarn. So I bought them with the idea of doing a certain project with them, and then decided that because they were kind of like randomized, that the colors that I ended up with I didn't want to use for that project, and so they've just been kind of sitting. And I was like, this is a perfect opportunity to use some of them. So what I did is I made stripes, and I did the stripes by marling 2 colors together, and then every 15 rows cycling out one of the colors. So the first stripe is color A and B, the second stripe is color B and C, third stripe is C and D, etc. So you're only swapping out one color at a time. I really like the effect it has. They're kind of scrappy, but I think, I don't know, I like them. And the pattern has an option of doing a regular sole or a princess sole. So the princess sole is where along the bottom the purl stitches face out, so that the smooth side of the knit stitches is on the inside against your foot. And the other thing, maybe it will, yes, here we go. The other thing is that this pattern has, anatomical toes. So that just means that the decreases, this is not showing up very well. There you go. So you can see it's not like a solid, they're not identical decreases on both sides of the sock. I have not worn these yet because I wanted to talk about them on the podcast before I wear them and make them all gross and socky. But I have tried them on. The fit is awesome. I have never done an anatomical toe before, but it fits really well. One thing that I do want to do is I want to add along the bottom, I want to add like little grippy dots. I think you can get things from like Michael's where it's like almost like glue, and you just put on like a bunch of little grippy dots, because then it'll dry and it'll be like an anti-stick. They'll be like anti-stick grippy socks for around the house, and I think that's gonna be perfect for fall. They are designed, they're designed to wear like with the cuff like this, and I think they're so cute. They knit up incredibly fast. So that is my Middle Earth Adventure sock. The test knit goes until the middle of September. So I think that the pattern will be out near the end of September. But if you're looking for like a thick, warm pair of slippery leg socks, it was good. I liked it. It was my first time knitting a pattern from her. And it's fairly clear, and it was good. Yeah, good experience. Okay, motoring on to my whips. We have, first whip is my Kip Sweater. This is by Rebecca Clow from the Crayabea. This is a test knit. Oh my goodness, there's cat hair everywhere. Okay, so I am knitting this in the size 7-ish, and I'll get into that. I am knitting it on 5mm needles, and this pattern has a gauge of 22 stitches to 44 rows per 10 centimeters. So it does mean that it's like taking a while. I kind of feel like tired of working on it just because it's taking so long and like it builds so slowly. But I have a few other projects that I'm kind of like cycling in. So it means that, you know, every few days I'm like, ooh, yay, I get to work on my Kip Sweater again, which is good. I don't want to say nearing the finish line. I still have a lot of knitting to do, but I have knit most of what I need for the body. It does look short, but it grows a lot with blocking. So I think I probably need another 10 centimeters, maybe a little bit less than that, maybe 8 centimeters, and then the ribbing. And then I've started the first sleeve. For some reason, picking up the sleeve of this project was such a mental block for me. And I think it has to do with the fact that the row gauge is so dense. And so the normal pickup rate that I would normally do, which is 5 out of 7, not gonna work. But it's fine, I did it, it's all good. I believe last time I podcasted, I had only just done a little bit of the body under the arms. So since then I've done quite a lot more of the body and the neckline, and I started the sleeve. It's the same construction as the stick season sweater. So start with the back panel, do the 2 front panels, join, knit down, join under the underarms, and then, you know, finish the body and then do the arms and the sleeves. Sorry, the arms and the neckline. The yarn I'm using for this is Dorura Natura Elise in the color Forest, and I've been really enjoying working with it. I've never used this brand before. It's a semi-woolen spun wool. So there's no, like, it's not tweedy, but there is some kind of like slight heathering. And so this is part that I had to restart a while ago, but like once you block it, it's so drapey. Like this is quite, I would say, like stiff, but this, I'll stop. It's quite drapey, and it softens up so much. So this little piece right here is kind of keeping me going, because I do want this, but it's just like a little bit labor intensive. So then I go, oh, but look how soft, and when I'm done, it'll be so nice. So thank you, little swatch. You're doing the good work. So the size. I, at some point, lost all sense of what I was supposed to be doing. So I'm supposed to be knitting the size 7. It's a test knit, so it's not like you can just be like, I'm actually gonna knit size 4. I mean, Rebecca is very accommodating, so if you asked her, I'm sure she would say yes. But I had to restart, so that's where this little piece comes from, is I started knitting the size 7. I'm doing the thing. I realize I know why. I realized that I started my herringbone pattern going the wrong direction, so I decided I am going to restart. I cast on for the size 5, which is not the size I'm supposed to be knitting. I don't know what happened. My brain stopped working. So, and then since then it's become a bit of a Franken sweater. So, cast on for the size 5. I did the size 5 increases for the shoulder. I then did the size 5 increases for the back panel. And then just because the stitch gauge for this, sorry, not the stitch gauge, the row gauge is a little strange, I decided before doing the underarm increases, I was gonna knit the front panel just to make sure that, you know, it's gonna line up and it's gonna be deep enough. And so when I did that, I knit the front panel for the size 7, which is what I should be knitting because my brain says you're making size 7, which is correct. I'm supposed to be making size 7. So I did the front panel in the size 7, and then you have to make sure that you are joining under the underarm on the same row in the stitch repeat because it's got this herringbone. So if you don't, then the herringbone will have this like, it won't line up. So, which means that when I knit the front panel, I'm like, okay, I'm on row, I can't remember, row 8. And then, but on the back panel, when I had knit to the depth that I was supposed to, which I wasn't, anyway, I'm getting a little bit, I'm probably confusing you, I'm sorry. But anyway, I had knit the depth for the size 5, which is obviously not the same as the size 7. So I was like, oh, I'm not on the right stitch repeat. I better knit. So that means I had to knit 13 more rows on the back repeat, or sorry, on the back panel to get to the same row in the pattern, which then of course is probably no longer the depth of the size 5 on the back. I'm now at the depth of the size 7, which is probably good. And then I did the underarm increases, joined in the round and knit. And I only realized that I had done this because I was looking at it and I was like, I feel that this armhole depth to, like, the proportion of armhole depth to body size is different from what she normally designs with, because I've knit quite a few of her patterns. And I was looking at it and I was like, nope, it's not. If you had done it properly, it would look normal. So that is my saga on the size of this sweater. It does look quite small right now. The size 5 across the bust would fit me. This pattern has lots of positive ease, and so even with the size 5, there's enough ease that it would fit me, so I'm not worried about that. Plus, with this yarn, it's kind of a trust the process kind of situation, because I look at it and I'm going, well, my armholes are quite deep, but my bust circumference doesn't have the same ease as my armholes do, but it's because my stitch gauge will grow a lot with blocking, more so than my row gauge will. All this to say, I'm making progress. I made a mistake. I am still working on it and I still do enjoy it, but it is a bit of a labor intensive knit. And I find this stitch pattern a little bit hard on my hands. So it's kind of like a pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down kind of situation. But I am committed. I haven't failed to finish any test knit before. This will not be the first, and I am really excited to have this in my wardrobe because it's going to be so squishy and warm, and I have been feeling all of the fall vibes. I actually have a cinnamon chai candle going behind me and it smells amazing. That's my Kip sweater. My next whip is the Hibernal sock. This is by, oh, I think it's Summerlee. I am knitting the size large on 2.25 millimeter needles. The first sock is done. It's at the point where I just actually need to graft the toe together, but I don't want to do that until I have the time and mental energy to then cast on the second sock, because for me sometimes like starting that next step is the biggest hurdle, and I don't want to be in a situation where I cast off this sock, put it down, and then don't pick it up again. So the other thing is that last time I podcasted, I was making the size medium. And when I got to the heel flap, I started doing the gusset decreases and I put it on. And I was like, this is tighter than what I want. So I ripped it all out, frogged the whole thing, cast on for the size large, and I'm much happier with how it's turning out. So it has this really beautiful faux cable pattern. So hold it up so you can see, and the faux cable runs all the way down the front of the sock, and then for the toe it's just stockinette. I am knitting this in Regia Premium Merino Yak sock yarn, and it's just this like heathered beige color. I don't have the ball band anymore. I forget what the color name is. I have been finding this really enjoyable to knit. This is almost kind of like mindless in some ways because the faux cable pattern is a repeat of 4 rows, and it's really easy to tell what row you're on. And so yeah, I don't have a ton to say about this. I am liking it a lot. I think the pattern is really enjoyable. I'm loving the yarn. And yeah, I just need to graft the toe together and start on the second socks, which I think I'll have kind of like the time and mental capacity to do this weekend. So my next whip, there's 3 more. I have a lot going on at the moment. My next whip is in its infancy stage. Let me just get all situated here. So this is my, you know what? I had meant to do research on how to properly pronounce this, but I believe it's the Aoide or Aoide sweater by Sari Nordlund. It is in her book Softly Timeless Knits, and I saw another maker talk about this sweater on her podcast. Her podcast is called The Knitting Page, but it's Paige. That's her name, The Knitting Page. And I loved her sweater so much that I was like, I need to make that. And then I saw another maker use this color of yarn, and that one is Knit Cheek. And so this is Quince & Co. Lark in the color Gingerbread. And when I saw that color, I was like, sold. So I bought both. My intention wasn't to buy them right now, just because I'm trying to like de-stash some yarn and it didn't make sense to buy yarn. But I have such a strong desire to have this. I was like, well, that's where the knitting mojo is taking me. So I have had a bit of a saga with this yarn. I ordered it from a Canadian store. They called me and they were like, we have 2 dye lots. Is that okay? They're a little different. And I was like, I think it'll be okay. I'll just helical knit. And I got them, and I believe I talked about it in my last podcast, but the dye lots are pretty different, to the point where you could actually even maybe say that they look like different colors. I'm being dramatic. They're the same color, but like the dye lots are significantly different. So I was looking at it and I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, I don't know if this is gonna work. So then I knit a swatch doing helical knit. So I did stripes, and I thought that it looked like you could tell, but in the light that I was looking at it, which was natural sunlight, it was almost masked a little by the texture of the pattern because it's all over cables. And so I was like, okay, I can make this work. And then that also brought up the issue of doing essentially like 1 by 1 row stripes while you're knitting flat, which is, you can do it. I found a great tutorial from Brooklyn Tweed where essentially you have 2 active balls of yarn, you knit the right side row, and then you slip it back, and then you knit a second right side row with the other yarn, and then using the first ball of yarn, you knit a wrong side row. Then you slip it back on your needles and you knit a second wrong side row. To do that, in this cable pattern with the texture, I was having a bad time. I got to about here. There we go, here. And I was like, holy moly, this is a lot. It's a lot. And I was like, but it'll be okay because I just need to get to under the underarms and then the rest of it is in the round. And I was sitting on my bed, I had the light on, and in the artificial light of a light bulb, the difference between the dye lots was extremely noticeable, and I was not happy with it. So I thought, I was like, I'm gonna have to give up. I was like, I'm gonna return the yarn. I am gonna have to just wait until Quince & Co. comes back in stock with his colorway, and then I can do it then. But just when I had given up hope, there was a person on Ravelry who had 13 skeins of this yarn in the dye lot that I needed, which was dye lot 11. And I had messaged her like a week previously, and she said, yeah, you know, how many do you want? And I kind of sent her, I was like, I'll take them all, here's my address, but I didn't hear from her. And so I thought maybe she was put off by the fact that I'm in Canada, and like transferring money from a Canadian bank to an American bank is not as easy as it is when you're in your own country, right? Like the US has Venmo, Canada we can use e-transfer. It's not as easy when you're doing but in international. So I thought maybe she was put off by that, and I was like, oh, I was like, no, my one safe, like my one hope. And I reached out to all of the yarn stores that I could find that had this in stock, and I asked them what dye lots they had, and none of them had the dye lot that I needed. And so I was like, it's not gonna happen. I was like, just return the yarn, wait till it comes back in stock sometime, order it from the website, make it then. And I was like, oh, but I want it now. And then the next morning I woke up from a message from the Ravelry lady saying that she had packaged up her yarn and had shipped it. Which, side note, she shipped it without like getting payment. So if I had been a bad person, I could have just stolen her yarn and not paid for it. I did not do that. I sent her money over PayPal. So I'm getting my yarn, she's got her money, I'm very excited. And the yarn store that I bought it from originally has agreed to refund, and like I'm gonna ship the yarn back to them. So it means that I started, which is why this is all one dye lot. I originally thought I didn't have a lot to say about this, but apparently I do. So I am knitting this sweater in the size 6, which the finished bust circumference will have a positive ease of about 25 centimeters. So definitely, oh, excuse me, definitely a bit roomier, but that's kind of like the vibe that I want for this sweater. And I am knitting it on size 5mm needles. I believe the recommended size is 4.5, and I swatched with 4.5, and knitting flat, my tension is tighter. So on the flat portion, I'm using 5mm, and then I think when I'm in the round, I might be able to change to 4.5, but I'll have to check. So I think that this is also going to be a bit of a longer term project for me, just because of how mentally involved it is. You know, it's got moss stitch potentially. I've only just started the moss stitch portion, but it's over here, which is quite intuitive. But I have to look at every chart row, pretty much. Well, no, I have to look at the cables. The parts where I'm just doing like knits and purls, it's pretty self-explanatory, but I think it'll take me a while, just because it means that when I'm working on this project, I can't be doing anything else. So no audiobook, no TV, focus knitting time only. And I also think that so there's a couple knit alongs happening this fall. One of them is the Wooliest Dreams knit along, and the other one is the Fall Feels knit along. I cannot remember the creators who are running them, but I will link them below. And I think that this sweater is going to be my entry for both. The Wooliest Dreams knit along is kind of like knitting your dream knit, and I have been wanting to knit an all over cable sweater for ages. And then the Fall Feels knit along is kind of just like any project that gives you fall vibes. And for me, the texture and squishiness of the sweater with the color of the yarn is like the most autumnal thing that I can think of. So I think that's my plan. Moving on, I'm trying to motor through. Yesterday, I cast on the Melete beanie, which is another pattern by Sari Nordlund, also in her Softly Timeless Knits book. I had no business casting this on, but I did anyway. When I woke up, it was like quite cold. It was 8 degrees Celsius. For all you Americans, I'm sorry, I do not know the Fahrenheit, but it was chilly. And so I was like, you know what, it'll be perfect if I just cast on this right now. I am knitting this toque in the largest size, and that's just because I want something like quite relaxed and soft and squishy. I'm using Sandnes Garn Tin Silk Mohair and Cascade 220 Fingering, both in the natural colorway. So it's like this really pretty warm white. And it was like a bit of a risk. Sometimes when you order like an off-white, it ends up being a cold off-white, or it's too yellow or whatever. This, I ordered this online and it ended up being exactly what I wanted, so I lucked out. The pattern recommends a 3mm needle, and I started it and I did a gauge swatch. And even though I'm knitting the largest size, I was looking at it and I was like, this, like for the ribbing, looks small. So, but it starts with ribbing and the gauge swatch is done in stockinette. So then I didn't want to cut my yarn in case I could keep going. So I broke open my second set of yarns and did a gauge swatch on the 3mm needle, and it was way too small. So then I got out my 3.75mm needle, which is generally what I would use to get a 24 stitch gauge with a fingering weight yarn. And if naturally that worked. Had I used my critical thinking at the start, I wouldn't have had to rip out, but I did restart. So I've done all of this today. Oh. I'm hoping. There we go. I think it's focused. So this pattern is kind of similar to the Musselburgh hat, where it's kind of like knit this long skinny tube with a crown on both ends. This one is different construction. So you do a provisional cast on, then you do ribbing, then you do stockinette, and then you decrease for the crown. And then on the other side, you pick up the provisional cast on, you knit stockinette and decrease for the crown. And then, so the result is like a tube that you fold inside itself, which then also has the ribbed band. And I'm so excited. I have a burning desire for a cream, oversized, squishy toque for this fall, and I can't wait. I mean, it's still like, it's no longer cold. Yesterday it was cold in the morning, today it is not. But that is all I really have to say about this. I just started it. It's kind of like this nice mindless stockinette project that I have. Not stockinette, sorry. Mindless in the round. Just because a lot of the rest of the patterns I'm working on are textured or are at a point where I need to like think about it. And sometimes I just want boring. And finally, I'm not going to talk about this one too much because I don't know if I'm going to continue making it. But after the catastrophe that was my stick season sweater, I was so mad. And everything that I was working on was kind of like a more labor intensive project. And so I've just cast on this self-drafted Raglan sweater. This is using one of the yarns that I talked about in my fall knitting plans, where it was a yarn that I wanted to use but didn't have a pattern for it. I should have grabbed a fresh skein because all I have is this little tiny nugget. But let me see. So this is the Peace Fleece worsted. Oh, I can't remember the color. I think it's the color Gonna Be Alright. But it's kind of like this cross between a forest green and an emerald green, and then it's got these tweedy flecks of lime and some blues and some browns, and it's knitting up really pretty. It's on the more rustic side, but not to the point where I couldn't wear it. And I have heard also that this yarn softens with wash. I am knitting this, I'll have to check. I believe, so here we go. These are 8mm needles. And my intention with this is literally just a huge oversized Raglan sweater that I can toss on for kind of like an extra warm layer if I need to, and that's kind of what I'm getting. That's really all I have to say. I don't know if I'm going to continue with it, and that's just kind of because I have other things that I want to work on more. So this is one skein's worth. I haven't wound up a second skein yet, and yeah, that's all. The only few other things I thought are worth mentioning is that my previous podcasts have mentioned a couple projects. So the Tulsa tank, which I was having some fit issues with, and then the wave sweater, which I was also having some fit issues with. I decided to frog both of those. So I decided, yeah, I'm just not going to worry about it. I'm done. I frogged them both. I kept the yarn from the wave sweater, so the white and the colorful boucle, and then I destashed the Tulsa tank yarn, which was this kind of mauvey purple from a Mano. It was the Mayu lace, and I was holding it double for a fingering weight. But yeah, those are done, so you won't see them again. And that kind of leaves me with my final finished object, which is a sewing finished object. I am gonna just stand up because I'm wearing them. Of course, I did not properly plan how I was gonna show you, but these are my bob pants. They are made in a 100% linen, and the fabric is from Blackbird Fabrics. So the front is the color chartreuse, the back is the color kale, and the fabric is their everyday linen. Hang on, I'm just gonna awkwardly just like mosey on over here. There we go. So I am obsessed with these. I love this outfit together. I've been wearing this a lot. I feel incredibly cool. I feel so cool when I wear this, and I am not a cool person, so I'm just trying to savor the sensation. Yeah, I'm so used to knitting. I sewed the size 18 in the pants, which is a couple sizes down from what they recommend. Hang on, coming back. Yeah. So it's a few sizes down from what they recommend, but I sewed this a few months ago in the size that is recommended for my waist measurement, and they were enormous. And so I still wanted oversized, but I didn't want that oversized. So I sized down to the size 18, and I am obsessed with them. I had wanted to try sewing something in a chartreuse color, but I was a bit too intimidated to do something entirely chartreuse, and so I feel like dark green is one of my like safe colors. I think it looks really nice on me, and so I was like, okay, I'll do half and half. Originally, my plan was to do one leg of chartreuse and one leg of the dark green, and my boyfriend convinced me that I would look like a court jester. So I'm still not convinced that I don't look like a court jester now, but this I think is like a bit more cohesive and like a little bit less out there, having the two colors be front and back. And this is the first garment that I've sewn that I've used my serger on. So there were some stressful moments. It worked out quite well. It worked out quite well. I have nothing else to say about them. I love them, and I'm going to wear them until they fall apart. Yeah. So that is the end of today's episode. This is completely changing topics. There's no smooth way to get in there. I have 3 cats. Normally, when I film, I put them downstairs because one of them can be a bit crazy. But today, they were just sleeping on the couch, looking all cute, and so I left them. And I personally love cat content, so I'm just gonna hold up all 3 of my cats. And if you're not interested, that is okay. I will see you next time. Thanks for joining. If you are interested, yoink. Oh, yeah, okay. So this one's Rosie. They're all shelter cats. We got her off of Kijiji, but she was originally from the SPCA. She's about 2, and she is the smallest of the 3. Oh my gosh, she's so cute. She is the craziest of all of them. She loves to play fetch, so she'll come and she'll drop her toy on us in the middle of the night and be like, play with us, play with me. So then the cats are banished at night now. Oh, sorry. This one is Ariel. Oh, she was napping. I've woken her. Sorry. Ariel we got from the Humane Society. She is 3.5. She's an anxious girl. She gets anti-anxiety medication every day, which, speaking of which, it is time for said anti-anxiety medication. Oh, so sweet. She's a good cat. She's like the dorkiest of them all, though. There you go. And, oh, hi, buddy. This is Gus. Oh my goodness. He is so suave. He charms the pants off of all the ladies at the vet clinic. He's so cute. And he just sits there and he's got his paws crossed and he looks, oh, he's like, Mom, you woke me up. Sorry, buddy. Anyway, this is Gus. He's very gentle. He just like loves to cuddle. If you're sitting on the couch or in bed, he just kind of comes and sits with you and he purrs constantly and he makes you lots of biscuits. And right now he's mad at me that I picked him up and woke him up. Sorry. Anyway, those are the cats. I thought I would show them because they are the light of my life and they were sitting right here. And yeah, if you're strongly opposed to cat content, I'm sorry. And anyway, that is everything. I will see you next time.